Tim Walz continues to be criticized for embellishing his rank and service. After it came out over the weekend, he once claimed to be an official bikini inspector. Walz's direct superior in the National Guard says Walz knew his unit was about to deploy to Iraq and went behind the back of his superior officer to resign.
Out that this guy doesn't have the limp he pretended to have, doesn't have like a bent hand that he pretended to have, that he's perfectly fine. He struts off into the sunset and we learn he was the bad guy all along. And I have to tell you, Mark, that is how I'm feeling today about Tim Walz.
What happens when you mix Tim Walz, a microphone, and two people with zero patience for political theater? You get a verbal takedown so intense, even his teleprompter considered resigning. Greg Gutfeld brings the snark, Megyn. Kelly brings the heat, and Walz mostly brings confusion. If you've ever wanted to witness a governor getting rhetorically body slammed without anyone breaking a sweat, buckle up. This roast is hotter than Walz's approval ratings are cold.
Gets back in the ring. I speak of former VP nominee Tim Walz. He joined Beto O'Rourke at a Texas town hall last night, and the estrogen levels were enough to give Chuck Norris menstrual cramps. I wonder, is our strength our diversity?
Our strength is our diversity. We've been talking about this for years as a country of immigrants, and we let them define the issue on immigration. We let them define the issue on DNI.
But I'm thinking there's only one explanation for Tim spewing nonsense like this. Time of the month.
The man, the myth, the human punching bag of politics with the resilience of a soggy tissue in a wind tunnel. If incompetence had a brand ambassador, he'd be in a North Face jacket clutching a clipboard, mumbling through a presser like a dad misexplaining TikTok. Minnesota didn't elect a leader. They hired a substitute PE teacher who stumbled into bureaucracy and never left.
News for Tim Walz on the disastrous performance he delivered, in particular when it comes to his self-described knuckle-headed behavior. This one was that he was in China when the Tiananmen Square disaster unfolded, when hundreds of people were killed.
I have my dates wrong. I was in Hong Kong in China in 1989. That move from Hong Kong into China, it was profound for me. That was the summer of democracy. I said it's where I understood how sacred democracy was. It's what encouraged me, about 15 back and forth with my students, taking them to China. I speak like everybody else speaks. I need to be clear, I will tell you that. I do understand China a hell of a lot better than Donald Trump. Kamala Harris understands China.
The excuse for his lies, Michael, is I speak like everybody else.
And just when you think the bar couldn't possibly go lower, Tim Walz glides in like a fog machine of failure. You know, it's bad when even Greg Gutfeld, the king of weaponized sarcasm, can't decide if Walz is a real governor or just a mannequin that wandered off from Macy's into public office. A finger. She looked at Walz's record and said, oh, this one's a layup. It's like shooting fish in a barrel if the fish were already floating belly up and whispering, finish me.
Trump's getting sworn in. But I'm thinking there's only one explanation for Tim spewing nonsense like this. Time of the month. Hotep, who do you think he's talking to? Like, what is the audience for that?
I don't even know who the audience is. I was confused when I saw the clip. Who the is he talking to? He's operating on some old program, but the big issue here is he's trying to criticize Trump. That was like supposed to be a jab at Trump being an old white guy or whatever. But it just comes back to the fact that Democrats don't understand economics. Because if you look at the moves that Trump is making right now, these are great economic recovery moves.
Let's start with the governing gem we'll call Tim tries to lead while staring into the abyss. His version of leadership feels like a Yelp review of a bad experience. Slow, painful, and you regret it instantly. Every time he speaks, your brain starts buffering. If leadership were Wi-Fi, Walz is that one flickering bar in the basement that only works if you stand on a stool holding your phone to the ceiling, but Walz doesn't settle for being generically awful. He's got range. He's a Renaissance disaster. Education, fumbled, public safety. He's allergic, the economy. He treats it like a pinata, swinging blindfolded while the candy goes straight into a shredder. When crime spiked like Elon Musk's ego, Walz responded, with the urgency of someone ordering a fancy latte. Let's hold a listening session and brainstorm synonyms. Meanwhile, citizens were calling 911 and getting hold music composed by a raccoon on a Casio keyboard.
Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate.
From 2015 to 2023, which was the date Tim Walz repealed the law requiring life-saving care, 24 babies were born alive in Minnesota after an attempted abortion. Think of how horrific that is.
And let's not gloss over the riots. Oh yes, the majestic chaos of Walz's crisis management. It was like a Shakespearean tragedy if Shakespeare forgot grammar, got high, and used sock puppets for characters. While the city burned, Walz gave pressers so vague that even a magic 8-ball sighed, "Dude, make a choice." Gutfeld summed it up. This guy governs like a stone mall cop who wandered into a riot and decided the best strategy was to nap in the food court. And frankly, that might have been an improvement. Walz doesn't manage chaos. He free floats through it, offering helpful nudges like, maybe try rebooting democracy.
Literally the dumbest administration of all time. Why is he talking?
It really is the ultimate clown show, and I said this in the 5. He's a clown without a circus. He's
Doesn't even need
roaming,
makeup.
He's roaming the terrain. Is there some carnival that I could work for? I'll wash your windows.
He's a rogue clown.
Yes.
Who is just an inconsequential footnote to vice presidential history.
Yes.
No one will remember his name on trivia night, and that's going to be in 3 months from now.
Megyn Kelly, who can weaponize smug into a warhead, took one look at his resume and became a verbal buzzsaw. She treated his career like a Pinterest fail, glitter from education plans, glued to collapsing infrastructure and dumped into the bonfire of public safety. Almost feel sorry for the guy until you remember he ran again. That's not confidence. That's delusion with a taxpayer-funded Kool-Aid budget. Under Walz, Minnesota turned into a live-action escape room. Everything's broken. Clues make no sense, and the guy in charge is just yelling, "Trust the process." What process, Tim? The one where logic dies and accountability takes unpaid leave?
Doug Brunt, my husband, he doesn't react to that much in the news. And so when it gets his attention, I know that something's gone either very right or very wrong. And he did not like this clip from Tim Walz reacting to the Taylor Swift news. Watch.
Taylor Swift signed childless cat lady. I have to get your response to that, Mr. Governor.
All those things, I am incredibly grateful, first of all, to Taylor Swift. I say that also as a cat owner, a fellow cat owner. Look, Swifties, you heard it. We know that it's there. That was eloquent, and it was clear. And that's the type of courage we need in America to stand up.
And my husband said he looks like Elmer Fudd. That's what he looks like, Elmer Fudd. Like there's something off about this guy.
Let's talk budget. Walz managed to burn through a surplus like a freshman with a new credit card. But instead of pizza and Xbox, he blew it on consultants, committees, and whatever fantasy land sprouts government programs. Gutfeld joked, if Walz ran your household finances, you'd be living in a van behind a burnt Arby's budgeting for air. He couldn't prioritize if the options were cure cancer or buy a $2,000 stapler for a committee on vibes. Then there's his pandemic response, a masterclass in chaos. Imagine locking people indoors for months and acting surprised when the economy faceplants like a toddler on roller skates. Walz governed COVID like someone who skimmed half a Wikipedia page and banned everything except depression and bad Wi-Fi.
Gets back in the ring. I speak of former VP nominee Tim Walz. He joined Beto O'Rourke at a Texas town hall last night, and the estrogen levels were enough to give Chuck Norris menstrual cramps. I wonder, is our strength our diversity?
Our strength is our diversity. We've been talking about this for years as a country of immigrants, and we let them define the issue on immigration. We let them define the issue on D&I.
But I'm thinking there's only one explanation for Tim spewing nonsense like this. Time of the month.
Small businesses were begging for mercy while Walz handed out rulebooks thicker than a Harry Potter novel, just with more fire and fewer spells. Restaurants got more updates than iPhones in beta. You can open, he said, but only if you stand on one foot, chant my name, and disinfect your eyebrows. Meanwhile, guess who occasionally forgot to follow his own mandates? Classic case of rules for thee, not for me. At this point, hypocrisy deserves its own office under his administration. Secretary of Whoops, I did it again.
How could they have a Jewish man as her running mate? Bad enough she's married to a Jewish man. This is how I'm sure they're thinking. I mean, Walz, on the other hand, is from a state that just changed his flag to represent that of Somalia. So it's a win. Ms. Harris reportedly calling Governor Walz earlier today to inform him of her, I'm putting her in quotes, first big decision. Who the hell knows who made this choice for her? He's the favorite of Nancy Pelosi. He was the favorite of Bernie Sanders. Does that tell us anything?
Megyn Kelly had a field day. She morphed into a human cross-examination, slicing through Walz's contradictions. With side-eye so sharp it could julienne carrots. You said lockdowns were essential, yet you went to that event? Curious. Want a shovel to dig deeper, or are you freestyling? Even the National Guard wasn't safe from his dithering activated late. Praised himself anyway, like a guy who burns toast, scrapes it off, and calls it artisanal. Gutfeld just roasted the whole mess like a political stand-up act. Walz calls it leadership. We call it wishful thinking wrapped in spinelessness.
That says that Walz lost, but one of them, Politico says, is like Walz's wide eyes showed his passion and emotional intensity. Can we show that? There is his wide eyes. That humans would widen their eyes to convey that danger is close. What emotion are you getting from that?
Sorry. Still. That was
What's amazing is how Walz managed to alienate both the left and the right in the same week. He tried riding the political fence so hard he got splinters in organ science hasn't found yet. 1 minute he's promising progressive reform. The next he's launching bureaucratic spaghetti at the wall and praying something sticks. Spoiler, it didn't. Now the wall just looks sad. Let's visit his education record. Minnesota's. Schools under Walz became a choose-your-own disaster novel told entirely in passive voice. Test scores sank, teachers quit, and Walz responded with, wait for it, another task force. Because nothing screams urgency like 14 Zoom meetings and a PowerPoint about trauma-informed sticker charts. Megyn Kelly put it best, watching Walz talk education is like a magician, pulling policies out of a burning hat while the rabbit files a lawsuit for emotional damage.
I have a fourth grader, rising fifth. And if there were ever a tampon dispenser machine in his bathroom, I would personally go and rip it down, like we saw those kids do in Virginia last year. And what will likely be a massive issue for Governor Walz, which is not being covered by the mainstream today, he is being accused of misleading voters on his military service and dodging combat service in Iraq.
Transportation? Don't ask. Roads, potholes, public transit. Walz's entire plan seems to be ignore it and maybe magic will fix it. Meanwhile, Minnesota drivers are dodging craters with their own postal codes. He tried greenwashing it with climate buzzwords, but every electric bus proposal died like a cactus in his office window. Even his pressers feel like interpretive dance routines. Lots of motion, zero meaning. It's like a TED Talk by someone who forgot the topic and just describes their lunch using metaphors.
Sadness, not reporting Walz's loss, but mourning it. Now, the truth is that a VP debate is like a colonoscopy. It's important and necessary, but that doesn't mean you want to watch it.
Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Even a deer in the headlights is screaming, "Get the out of the way, dude!"
Gutfeld nearly needed CPR from laughing. Tim Walz makes me nostalgic for dial-up. At least that made progress. Then there's his favorite slogan, One Minnesota. Sounds nice until you realize it's just branding duct tape over a fractured state with rising crime, crumbling. services and residents Googling how to escape to Wisconsin without shame. Even Walz's own eyebrows look like they're trying to flee his face. He governs like someone who wandered into office, got mistaken for the real boss, and decided to wing it until someone noticed. His one real skill? Surviving PR disasters by awkward smiling and passing the blame like a hot potato.
And I saw a man with a beard, just a guy with a beard, or that expression, believe me, the pepper spray would be all sprayed all over Walz. That is the freak, not JD Vance.
Yeah, well, Walz's expression throughout the entire time did not convey steadiness. No. Like, almost like unsteady weirdness.
At this point, Tim Walz isn't a governor, he's a metaphor, a walking, mumbling symbol of everything broken and modern. Politics, bland, careful, allergic to responsibility, and so obsessed with pleasing everyone he accomplishes nothing. So here we are, watching Minnesota spin in a downward spiral while Walz fiddles on his taxpayer-funded fiddle, co-writing policies with a confused squirrel council. Meanwhile, Gutfeld and Kelly are just in the corner with popcorn, narrating the fall of House Walz like it's the final season of a bad political soap opera. The only thing missing is a laugh track, and honestly, even that would be too generous. Because Minnesota didn't get leadership under Walz, it got a cautionary. Tail in cock youth.